making a word for it. So, Treetops Time Chronicles, written by Roderick Candela Picture and David Hunt. So, turn to page 3 and let's get started to this book. So, chapter 1. In the early hours of the morning, a section of the new railway line was finally completed. Now it had to be tested. Beneath a full moon, the bright metal of the tracks stretched into the distance. A steam engine hissed impatiently as it waited in clouds of twisting smoke. The Navy's men who had built the railway lined the embankments on either side of the tracks. Some lay sleeping. Others played cards or dice. Hardly anyone bothered to watch. The train blew its whistle and began to move. The steam engine picked up speed. The engine's cabin was hot, noisy, and cramped. The sweating faces of driver as firemen glistened in the fierce heat from the coal fire in the firebox. Both men worked tirelessly to keep the boiler at full pressure. It was dirty, exhausting work. A third man stood behind, watching them. Wearing a smart dark suit, he looked out to the place in the sooty cap. "This is an honor to have you aboard, sir," shouted the driver to the din. He winked on the fireman. "Who have thought it? Fred, Sir Robert, the engineer in our cab." The man in the dark suit smiled. "Well, I couldn't have your man test the new railway bridge on your own," he laughed. "After all, I designed the thing. I should prove it safe by being the first over it." The steam engine chugged on through the moonlight countryside. So Robert glazed out as they flashed past, countless the hedge-lined fields of clouds. Then cars, then sheep. "Just round the next bend and we'll be on your new bridge," shouted the driver. Sir Robert smiled to himself. This was an exciting time to be alive. The county was changing, improving, and was playing big part making it happen. Sir Robert leaned out the cab to watch the bridge come into view. But something caught on his eye. The train steamed on. He thought he saw a ship running alongside the track, past the train. Animals doesn't learn to hold trains, do they? At that same moment, the driver called out in alarm, "Look out near the bridge, man on the tracks." With a long blast of the engine whistle, everyone in the cabin was thrown forwards as the driver pulled the emergency brake. With its brakes grinding, the steam of engine hustled towards the bridge. Despite the terrible sound, most of the ship didn't move, caught between the fear of the train and fear of something else beyond them. What were the two dark figures doing on the bridge? They seemed to be unscrewing something. At the last moment, they leapt to one side. At once, the ship sketched out of the way. For a split second, the man in the cabin felt great sense of relief. But as the braking engine moved through the bridge, they were soon gripped by a new horror. To the sound of sickening metallic cracks, the bridge began to jolt and roach beneath them. Even in their panic, they sensed what was about to happen. "Go on, Sir Robert shouted. "The bridge is giving way." But it was too late. With a deafening crack, a section of the bridge collapsed. The steam engine plunged into the river below. Bridge after bridge collapsed. Train after train plunged into the raining current. Fire after fire swamped by freezing water. Metal snapping, bolts cracking. Tyler suddenly woke with a jolt. He loved his face. What a terrible nightmare. He shuddered, falling asleep at control. That's not good. Chewing a pencil to keep himself awake. He started the time warp. Suddenly, the pencil dropped from the mouth. Without looking to hit their alarm, he had seen something terrible. Whilst Tyler had slept, the Varans had made their move. Tyler was distraught. I'm so sorry, I must have nodded off. Motlaq and the others studied in the time map carefully. A black patch had spread its deadly darkness along the web's fine threads. This is not good, murmured Motlaq. The darkness is spreading. It means the initial attack has already succeeded. Can we stop it? Asked Chip. Motlaq looked worried. If a Baron attack succeeds, then the history is changed forever. The changes become what they actually happened. They become history, and that has a knock-off effect from every moment that follows right up to the present. Everything changes. That's why the darkness is beginning to spread out the time web. So we're too late? Said Biff. Possibly, nodded Motlaq grimly. Or possibly not, said Chief. Look, if it just only happened, maybe the change won't have the time to spread far yet. Wilma interrupted him. Yes, if Tyler could send us back to the point where the Baron attack happened, maybe we could change things back again before they take hold. Motlaq looked uncertain. Well, it's worth the try. Can you do it, Tyler? But Tyler was already at work. 1849, England. I'll get you as close as I can. Look out, shouted Chief as they stepped from the portal. With a rush of choking smoke and swirling sparks, the steam engine slid past Wilma, Chip, and Kipper. Tyler had got them close alight, a bit too close. What was that? Shouted Kipper. Chip peered through the smoke. I can't see, but a steam engine, I think. It's a steam engine, I think. Seconds later, they heard the threatening crack of shattering metal and a gigantic crash as the bridge and the engine fell into the river below. By the time Chip, Kipper, and Wilma got to the bridge, it was all over. It was strange to see how the way the broken track hung over the edge of a huge gap where a section of the bridge used to be. Chip peered down the river below. There may be a man dropped down there, he shouted. We have to save them. Chip, wait! Wilma was holding a link. Tyler had sent the download, but the download wasn't from Tyler. Download from Motlaq. This is Motlaq. We can see the bridge in the club. There is nothing you can do. It's too late. You are not to go near the water. This is an order. Team M. Motlaq didn't think properly. Too late to do anything, said Keeper quietly. But we have to do something, said Chip. Maybe, said Wilma. Look! Back down the track, two dark figures were running into the distance. Virons, hissed Wilma. Come on! But what about Motlaq's others? Keeper called after her. Did he say we couldn't catch Virons? She replied. Some way down the line, the Varans seemed to be looking for something. Then they had dashed up the banks at the side of the track and out of the view. Unknown to the time runners, the Varans had just located the place where the infector would appear. Like the time runners portal, the infector enabled Varans to move through time. Once inside the infector, the Varans' mission would be complete. The two Varans stood in a field, watching for the infector to appear. Any moment we will be gone, sneered one of them. But our work will remain. Time will set and the head is stone. It will be possible for the time runners to change it back. It will be impossible for the time runners to change it back. Our work here will become mystery, a history where mankind begins to lose and the industrial revolution. Progress turned backwards, a change for the worse. Following to the Varans, Skipper, Chip, and Wilma were faced in a terrifying sight at the top of the bank. A black swirling star, the infector, had punched a hole into the air above two Varans. Instantly, the black star seemed to snatch trails of dark raw energy from the one of the Varans. As his energy blended with the black stars, the Varans' human disguise crumbled into dust. More out of fear than anything, Wilma launched her zap trap. Attracted to the dark energy, it zipped straight towards the infector. For a few seconds, the zap trap began to throw dark energy back out of the black star. It was as if the infector and the zap trap were rocked in the struggle for the Varans' energy. After a moment, zap trap snapped shut and fell to the ground, trapping the Varan inside. Because the infector had been disturbed, it instantly vanished. At this, the remaining Varan let out a piercing snore. Chip reached for his jab trap, but at once the Varan pulled something from his pocket and threw it. Whatever it was, it thumped heavily into the Chip's chest, knocking him to the ground. The Varan turned flat across the field towards the distant hedgerow. I'm okay with Chip as he pulled himself up. What hit me? This, said Keeper. He was holding a large iron board. It was as big as his hand. Maybe it has something to do with what happened in the bridge, said Wilma. She looked at Chip, who was rubbing his chest. You need to catch your breath, Chip. Get Tyler to send the portal. Show Motorak the board. Take the full zap trap back too. What will you do? Asked Chip. We'll go after the Varan, she said, picking on the ship's jab trap. You up for it, Keeper? You bet, he replied. Let's go. The Varan crossed the field in seconds. Wilma and Keeper saw him leach toward the road beyond. Some wagons were waiting there for the day work to begin. They were used to deliver parts to the railway. The Varan leaped one of the waiting wagons and drove into the horse forward fast along the dirt track. We mustn't lose sight of him, shouted Wilma. They set off after him in one of the other wagons. I can't see him anymore, yelled the Keeper. We have to go faster. I can't, snapped Wilma. The road is terrible. It was true. Wilma was doing her best. But the wagon was being thrown all over the place as the horse stumbled over the many logs, ropes, and posters. Around the next bend, they suddenly caught up with the Varan. He had driven the horse so fast that he lost control. The wagon hit a large log and one of its wheels collapsed, and the horse broke free. The wagon ended up in the ditch. The Varan lay still in the road. A metal board lay by his side. Now what? Asked Kipper nervously. Wilma took a step forward into the violence. Easy, whispered Kipper. Suddenly the Baron's eyes snapped open. His hand closed around the board. With the speed of a striking snake, he grabbed at Wilma. He leaped backwards. Kipper's jab trap spun in the comet of sparks toward the Baron. But the Baron was ready. He threw the board in the spinning zap trap. Instantly, the board shattered like glasses and the broken zap trap fell to the ground. For a second, everyone stopped still in the disbelief. Then the Baron began to laugh as he turned and ran. Back at the time board, Chip sat down in the laboratory, watching Motorak at work. Motorak had been studying the board Chip had bought back. He had run various tests, and now he sat staring at a piece of board through a microscope. As I suspected, he suddenly muttered. He looked up from the microscope and pressed the button to speak to control. Tyler, go to the library and find blueprints from all engineering designs around 1849. We need to see where the parts like these were used in the bridges. Onto it came Tyler's reply. What is it? Asked Chip. Motorak picked up the word. This word is very weak, Bristol. Something must have been added to the iron when the word was made. The matter is impure. He looked at Chip. I think I have a plan, but we're going to have to work fast. The history of the Industrial Revolution may depend on it. Chapter 7. The Baron scrambled down the steep bank on the path alongside the canal. Kipper and Wilma quickly followed. A little way along the canal ran into the dark narrow tunnel and came to the side of the hill. At the side of the hill, the path became a steep flight of steps. As the mouth of the tunnel closed, a barge was tied up. It was waiting to be taken through the tunnel. We'll catch him at the steps, shouted Kipper, as they slide down to the canal bank after him. But Kipper was wrong. The Baron didn't take the steps. Instead, he leaped the barge and scrambled across the corner and dived back into the canal of the mouth of the tunnel. What now? Said Kipper. The barge, jump on it. Jump him. Wilma quickly untied the rope and pushed the barge out into the canal. The barge slowly drifted into the narrow, damp tunnel. The distant sounds of the Baron when the water echoed through the darkness, fading with every moment that passed. Hasn't this barge got on the engine or something? Asked Kipper. I could walk faster than this. An engine. Walk, of course, said Wilma. Kipper, get on your back, put the feet on the roof in the tunnel and walk. It was hard, dirty work. The tunnel seemed to go on forever, but despite all their efforts, the Baron has disappeared some time before they saw right at the end of the tunnel. But when they finally emerged to the town of the new day, were greeted with sight that took their breath away. They had arrived right into the middle of a busy, smoky industrial town. The blueprint design of Sir Robert's bridge was stretched out of the table in the library. If you look closely, you'll see the board was used to attach the girders to the upstraight tissues, said Tyler. So the boards would have to be strong enough to take most of the weight from the bridge and anything crossing it, said Jeff. Correct, said Motorak, who had just came back from his workshop. The board Chip bought back was not able to cope with the stress that it was put under. But what can we do? Asked Chip. The Barons have beaten us on this one. There may be a way, said Motorrock. He put a bag of birds on the table. I've made this in the workshop. They are identical except that the iron is good. It's not brittle. If we could somehow replace the Varan's birds just before the train crosses. But what about Varan? What about the Varans? Asked Chip. Won't they still be there? Yes, no, well, possibly. It all depends on whether Wilma and Keeper can catch the other Varan. We'll never catch the Varan now, said Wilma. He'll be miles away. They tied the coal barge alongside a number of others waiting to unload the cotton mine. In actual fact, they were closer to the Varan than they thought. Much closer. 4 barges along, the Varan had been hiding after the long swim. At the sound of their voices, he leapt from the barge, ran across and covered the quay side and into the mill. After him, shouted Keeper. He's gone up the stairs. In the mill, an extraordinary sight greeted Wilma and Keeper as they entered the vast machine room at the top of the stairs. The Varan had been caught. Pushing past the terrified mill workers, he had nearly made it to an open door at the other end of the room. But his arm had caught up one of the cotton spinning machines. Like a strange fly caught in a web, the more he struggled, the more he became entangled. Keeper shouted the first thing that came into his head. Stop that man, he's a thief. Not knowing that they were dealing with, a few of the workers stepped towards to the snarling Varan. Immediately, he filled the air around him with a choking Varan darkness. Smoke, a worker screamed. The machine's on fire. In a panic, the workers ran towards Wilma and Keeper, pushing them back to the door. Under the machines, shouted Wilma. Crow is the only way we'll get to him. It was a race. Beneath rows of dangerous machinery, Wilma and Keeper crawled towards the Varan as they struggled to free himself. But they were not even close when the Varan finally broke free. He laughed and stepped towards to the open door. Hanging above the door was a rope and a pole he used to pull up bundles of raw cotton. He grabbed the rope and swung out. But by now, there were no workers to get in the way. Keeper rolled out from under a machine, stood up and launched his zap trap as hard as he could. Chapter 10. Tyler had sent Chip back again to just before the train crashed. In a field of sheep he waited. He could see the bridge. He had a bag full of the replacement forts Motorrock had made. Chip understood that a bit of Motorrock's plan. But as for the rest of it, Motorrock could have Thornton take his zap trap with the Varan he had caught still in it. And what Chip really couldn't get his head around was that he knew the very same Varan was, at that moment, also down on the bridge, carrying out his deadly work. What is more, Motorrock's plan would only work if both Varans were captured and brought back to where Chip was. That depended on Wilma and Keeper. The sound of train whistle broke the silence. Chip spoke to Tyler. We've heard nothing yet, came Tyler's reply, but I'll divert the porter so they come straight to you from where they are. Chip could now hear the distant sound of the train chugging down the track. He had to do something. But what? With a vague plan that he might somehow stop the train before it got to the bridge. Chip ran across the field. Sheep scattered ahead of him. Sheep, that was it. Chip desperately stumbled about, trying to drive as many sheep on the track as possible. The sound of train grew louder. The sheep would slow the train down, but not for long, and they wouldn't stop the barons. Then, to the relief, a familiar glowing door appeared between him and the bridge. Moments later, Chip, Wilma, and Keeper were racing towards the bridge, clutching both zap traps. "Do exactly as I do," Chip shouted as they ran. At the sight of the barons, Chip and then Keeper pressed the release buttons on their zap traps before dropping them on the ground. Instantly, the energy from both freed barons hissed from the open zap trap. The barons on the bridge had barely a moment to scream. Their dark energy was sucked from their human disguise, smashing into the energy released from the zap traps. For a moment, nature itself seemed to shriek in the terrible pain as the energy collided together. Now Chip understood the rest of Motorrock's plan. It was not possible for two versions of the same thing to exist at the same moment. The barons had cancelled themselves in a terrible storm energy. It was over. Or was it? Quickly, Chip shouted, with the burps in his hand. They frantically undid the barons' work. As the sound of the sunk train grew louder, the last board was in place just as the wheels of the engine carrying Sir Robert and the men crossed onto the bridge. They lay on the ground exhausted. Chip felt sure he could just make out the sound of the men cheering the engine traveled on walls beyond the bridge. History back on track, he sighed.